Hello and welcome to Sex in the News. We are the Siegel Brothers. Today we've got a few stories for you. We're going to start one that talks about how antibodies can stop sperm in their tracks. We'll then talk about another study that just came out in the US showing that young men prefer video games over casual sex. And then we will finish with a story of a man dying during sex and, quote, extreme orgasm is determined to be the cause of death. All right, so it's a nice little collection we have.
Some interesting news tonight, for sure.
Indeed.
Yes.
And before we start, welcome back.
Welcome back to you, my brother.
Welcome back to you all as well. We've had a couple of weeks that we took off while our producer nephew is running away with the circus. Right? So we are glad to be back and glad to be back on this and bringing you some of the sex news of the day. Right?
So our first story is a little realistic and scientific.
A little wonky.
Right, from the scientists. A study showing that certain antibodies can be engineered to stop and immobilize sperm.
Yeah, now, and I find this really, really interesting, and there's also a part of me that it's, kind of about time. Mm-hmm. Because we've also known, and I've been saying for a long time, whenever I teach about pregnancy and conception, I often will say that I'm amazed that pregnancy can even happen at all because the odds are so against it.
Right.
And I don't know that there's a more inhospitable place in the known universe than a woman's body when it comes to a sperm.
Right.
Including women's bodies produce antibodies to sperm. Mm-hmm. And these researchers have kind of looked at that. And this is a study published in a journal Science Translational Medicine. So it's light reading. But basically, they generated these antibodies to sperm. They did actually have a couple of them. And they were using sheep as the vehicle. Right? Now, again, to be clear, nobody is trying to create human-sheep hybrids. Okay? Former President Bush, if you're listening, I want to be very clear about that. Right? There's no human-sheep hybrids being created here. Sheep were just the sort of reproductive
like all
track
research,
vehicle.
right? We work our way up the evolutionary ladder to duplicate and see how things work in lower mammals. How might they work in naked apes?
And I have to qualify that because, again, if people hear that they're putting human sperm into sheep, right, there's a reason for that.
Right.
Okay.
They're using it as a lab, as a petri dish,
That's
basically,
exactly right.
And what they found was that when applied topically to the urinary tracts of sheep, these antibodies are 99.9% effective in trapping and immobilizing sperm. So as long as we've been teaching sex ed and sexual health, we're talking about birth control, it's always been dozens of different methods for women and condoms for men, unless they want to get a vasectomy. And there's always been this talk, in the pipeline. There's all these things for men in the pipeline. And it's like 30 years we've
never
been
come to
hearing
fruition.
This.
Yeah.
Something like this, another possibility, another glimpse of hopes for a reversible, non-hormonal contraceptive for
non-hormonal.
Males.
Again, we put this burden on women to not only have the responsibility, but we basically say if you don't want to get pregnant, you must change the way your body functions.
Every day. You must use your entire endocrine system all the time, even if you're just having sex a couple times a month.
Right. So this is really a potential for a breakthrough.
Any birth control method that males can use to temporarily keep sperm from egg.
Right. Now, again, we don't know how this will ultimately be delivered or how that, it could still be something like an intravaginal suppository type of thing, or it could be delivered that way. But again, it's really for keeping back the sperm.
Do you remember the intravaginal bug zapper?
I do. That was one of my favorite methods.
This thing that supposedly, as sperm tried to swim through the cervix, they'd get zapped.
That's right. Little transistors on either side of the cervix, creating this little electric field. And I used to call it the miniature bug zapper.
I wonder if that went anywhere.
You know what? In the studies that were done at the time when we were talking about it, it was the only contraceptive method that was being tested that was 100% effective. But I mean, what are the side? What happens if you go through the scanner at the airport?
You lay there after sex.
Right? Can you be around microwaves? Can you hear it?
And a new activity besides smoking cigarettes to do after sex. Listen to the sperm zapping.
That's right. Postcoital sperm zapping.
Our next piece. This is, again, been talking about this for a while, and for, what do we call us, young boomers, but, old farts in one form or another, are just baffled by this whole, the Gen Z and the millennials generation's relationship to video games.
Yeah.
And a lot of us sex therapists see this clinically, and this study just confirms it. Young men, and a lot from what we've seen, a lot of middle-aged men as well, prefer video games over casual sex. This is a bigger, in addition to this study about casual sex, I'd say I and a lot of sex therapists I know see this as a serious problem in serious committed relationships as well, where usually along gender lines with heterosexual couples, where women are like, WTF, I'm here, I want to have sex with you, and you won't put down the video game because you're playing with your friends.
That's right.
It's just very, very bizarre. So, as this article points out, if you think young men prioritize sex the most over other pleasurable pastimes, you might be wrong, as new research has shown they can give up on sex to play video games. And, we've I think, long firmly established ourselves as not the biggest fan of applying an addiction label to, anything. But when guys with serious jobs and relationships are threatening both because they're up till 4 or 5 in the morning, this is a problem.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
So, for women, the biggest factor explaining the decline in casual sex was drinking. For men, it was drinking and gaming.
Yeah. Right. Now, I don't remember the comedian.
Another interesting twist here, too.
Go ahead.
That 10% was accounted for by the fact that they are still living with their parents.
Right.
That'll kill a sex drive, too.
Well, but again, look at that bigger picture. Take that step back and look at this in the context of all the failure to launch kind of things. And it kind of fits right in.
In history, 17-year-olds made plenty of opportunity to have sex while living with their parents.
That's right.
In their parents' house.
But I remember the comedian years ago did this. He had this great line about, it wasn't about video games, it was kind of before video games in a lot of ways, but it was just like, that same kind of the older married couple, they're in bed, and it's just like, well, do you want to have sex? It's like, well, I can have sex anytime, but I'm paying for cable. So I want to see what's on. So there, I think we've been kind of well on our way with those shifting priorities.
Yes. And
our final story here, again,
sounds a scary headline.
It does. It really does. The picture that they showed it looks a lot more innocent than that. But a man dies during sex, and the cause of death determined to be extreme orgasm. A 35-year-old, I believe, Malawi man died after engaging in sexual intercourse with a sex worker, and a post-mortem has listed extreme orgasm as the cause of death. And what they were describing, they're saying the investigation revealed that the extreme orgasm caused brain vessels or blood vessels in the brain to rupture, leading to his death. Now, the good news is that according to reports, the woman is not going to be held liable for his death, and no charges have been filed against her. Right? So that's a good thing. Now, as if that isn't interesting enough, I have to just go a little further in this because they're talking about how that may run counter to the advice that a lot of us have always given about resuming sex early after a heart attack. It doesn't change any of this. This is a real aberration, but this is something that was included in the article. A similar incident was reported in Nagpur, India, a few weeks ago. Now, this guy had basically vascular rupture in his brain
30-year-old.
because of an intense orgasm. But what they're describing as a similar incident was a 30-year-old man in India who died apparently due to suffocation after a rope tied around his neck during sex with a woman that he was having proved fatal. Right? Now, I think there's a little difference.
Yeah.
It's not very similar to have blood vessels rupturing in your brain because you're coming too hard and basically choking yourself to death.
Right.
Right?
That's death by misadventure or mistiming.
Oh, if he only was a Boy Scout.
But I'm glad it was blood vessels in the brain, because the first image that came to me was, when Elmer Fudd would stick a shotgun in Bugs Bunny's face, and Bugs would just stick his fingers in the barrel of the... Right. That would be a far worse way to die than busting blood vessels in your brain.
Oh, fortunately, it's just blood vessels in the brain.
Right. Okay. So those are our items for
Indeed.
Sex in the News.
All right, and for our last piece, some of you I know are fans of this, as we are. We like to end with one of two pieces. Tonight we're going to sort of go back into the WTF column for this, because again, every once in a while something happens that just makes you scratch your head and ask, WTF.
And we actually have a return, right?
Yes, this is a first for us.
From a previous WTF item.
Indeed. Some of you, I don't know, may remember the name Yuri Tolochko. Right? He was is a Kazakhstan bodybuilder that we talked about before. You remember when he made the headlines for the first time?
Yeah, he married the sex doll that he was having a long-term affair with.
That's right. Married the sex doll. He was cheating on his first sex doll, right, when she went in for repairs.
Oh,
that was Margot.
Yes.
Right? He was cheating on her when she
Margot.
went in for repairs. He was cheating on her with this other thing that kind of created. It was like half sex doll, half chicken, half all this other kind of things, and he just fell in love. Right? He fell in love.
Well, for some guys, half woman, half chicken is just irresistible.
Indeed, and especially for Yuri. Right? So now he's back in the headlines because there apparently were some ongoing issues between him and Margot.
That Margot, I heard she's really difficult.
She really is. She doesn't put in her batteries when you want her to.
No. See, he wanted to try other objects and keep exploring,
right,
while Margot was being repaired. The Kazakh muscle man cheated with a strange silver object that, even more strangely, is not identified, not described any further in the article, other than a strange silver object.
That he was cheating on his sex doll.
And the man contemplated his lifestyle choices and decided to unload Margot, because, as we said earlier, she's a bit of a pain in the ass.
That's right. But he decided to unload her because one sex doll wife is not enough. He just can't do monogamy.
He was poly.
Yeah.
And had several wives instead. Told media houses that he wanted to take things further, and even tried to meet another sex doll.
Oh yes, and this is where it really tugs at the heartstrings.
Well, he took it to Instagram, as all good lovers do, to announce the divorce and introduce his new queer wife, Lola.
Right. Now, Lola is queer, as he says, but
also questioning, I would say.
Yeah. Right? See, I think that's more accurate.
She's yet to decide on her sexual and gender identity, and is, quote, in search.
Yeah. Right. So there's a sex doll searching for an identity.
And this is when he revealed that Lola has a woman's head, a chicken's body, the navel has depth and can be used as a vagina, and a penis can be inserted into it. He says, I'll show you this one day. I identify her as a massive chicken.
Right. Now, again, you obviously don't just run into this combination of sex doll and chicken at Walmart. right? He flew to Moscow.
Yes, he did.
To meet the sex doll that he got acquainted with online.
You can't just go on an online acquaintance. You have to really make sure you connect in person.
That's right. Well, you have to make sure it's real. You don't want to be catfished by a doll.
But as it turned out, the authorities kept him at the airport because of quarantine.
Yes, exactly. So his first option really didn't work out, right? But a lot of this is, it's not just fun and games. I mean, it really is. There's real stuff here to, it's, because Yuri also was talking about the fact that he's really not ready to talk in depth and to really open up about this because he's really still hurting from the divorce from Margot. Mm-hmm. Again, he married Margot, his first sex doll wife, in a ceremony that was surrounded by loved ones last year in November. That's where we kind of started reporting on it. But, unfortunately, weeks into their marriage, she broke.
Just before Christmas.
And she broke before Christmas. What kind of holiday could he have had? Right? I mean, this is it's really emotional stuff. So with that, we have to ask Yuri and everybody like you, WTF?
That'll do it for this week's Sex in the News.
Thanks for watching.